Good evening and welcome to Sunday interview for tonight. With me, Franklin Temple Jr. Now, the enactment of the Cybersecurity Act No.3 of 2025, as well as the Cyber Crimes Act No.4 of 2025, have raised mixed reactions from various stakeholders. Social media, in particular, has been awash with all sorts of interpretations, pointing in many instances to the negative aspects of the new law. Some see this development as being ill-intended to gag certain freedoms such as free speech and privacy. The government, on the other hand, says there is a lot of misinformation that is meant to discredit the good intentions of the new cyber laws. It says the new laws are the best interest of the country's security and its citizens, including institutions which have suffered abuse by malicious people who hide behind computer keyboards to tarnish hard-earned personal and institutional reputations. In what context should Cybersecurity Act and Cyber Crimes Act be understood? On this special edition of Sunday Interview, I have two experts to address some of the common areas of concern under the subject matter. Allow me to spend just a few moments to explain my guests. On my far right is Taonga Chisamanga. He's a seasoned information technology professional with over 15 years of experience, specializing in cybersecurity, IT governance, project management, and IT operations. His expertise spans from information security, business risk management, and ICT development. That doesn't completely explain him. On my immediate left, right, is Dr. Clement Sinyangwe, who is the president and a distinguished fellow of the ICT Association of Zambia, ICTAZ, and serves as chairperson of research at the Technology Information Confederation for Africa, TICONA, with over 20 years of experience in the ICT sector. He served 19 years at Zambia Daily Mail as Deputy ICT Manager before becoming Head of ICT at Chalimbana University. He sits on various committees and boards, including Zambia's E-Government Technical Implementation Committee and the ICT and Digitalization Technical Working Group under Public-Private Dialogue Forum. Gentlemen, welcome to Sunday Interview.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Good to have you. At some point, as is the case, you will have an opportunity to make that phone call and interact with my guests as we try to unpack, try to make it clear as far as what the new law is all about. Now, let's get straight to it. And I suppose just the basics. What is the Cybersecurity Act No.23 of 2025, as well as the Cyber Crimes Act No.4 of 2025? And I suppose for the public, it's what are they really intended to achieve? Let me start with you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. So in answering that question, let me first take it back. I think everyone knows that we had these laws as far as 2009. Only that they were embedded in one package of the law. But now, starting from 2021, we noticed that the government unpacked it and created the Cybersecurity Act as well as Cyber Crime Act. And this time, we've seen that there is further unpacking of the laws. I'm sure the government is trying to make it more clearer and focused on specific issues. So now we have the two laws that is the Cybersecurity Act No.3 of 2025, which is looking at which focuses on establishing institutions and as well as frameworks that manages the cyber-related issues and respond to cyber threats, security threats that are coming. Right. So this includes setting up agencies that will be coordinating these cyber-related threats, as well as protecting the critical information infrastructure. For example, the Act provides the critical information infrastructure, simply put, protecting the systems that houses the critical information that is cardinal to the running of the country. We'll talk about critical information such that if we do not, those such information that refer to those that, if not handled well, they may cripple, you know, some aspect of the economy.
Right, and we'll come back to certain definitions like what is critical and what is not, but I think the general perception out there from skeptics especially is that this would just allow for what you may call mass surveillance, spying on people, invading people's privacy. Explain this.
Thank you so much. I think the misconception, firstly, that's out there on mass surveillance is quite big. I think I've seen it over the past few days on social media. But the one thing I would like to probably demystify is that the two laws do not actually even mention surveillance as a term in there. I think the two aspects that are mentioned in the law is the aspect of random monitoring and interceptions. So, and on the aspect of random monitoring and interception, it's on random monitoring is very clear under Section 37 where it says it's prohibited. Okay, it's prohibited. And then for interceptions, I mean, it's been clearly defined that you do need a court order for that to happen. Now, are interceptions necessary? Yes, they're going to be necessary at times. And I think there's no country that I've seen that doesn't have the aspect of interceptions in their law, unless maybe someone out there can educate me. But so far from my research, from what I've seen is interceptions are a common practice in most laws, but there are guidelines. And the aspect and the transparency that comes with this law is that the guidelines of when that interception should be brought in have been put in the law. They've been guided. I think the law guides us very clearly on when we're going to, what needs to be done for an interception to be permitted. I think in the previous law, what we noticed is that it was a bit longer. The process to get an interception was a bit longer. And in a situation where you have, let me say, we know of the case, I think, some time back where a child was kidnapped. And through interceptions, the government was able to find that child within 4 hours, right? But now that can even actually be done faster with this law. What do I mean by this is that previously, when you want to do an interception, you have to go to the Attorney General, then you go to the judge to get that judicial authorization. But now the aspect of the Attorney General has been removed. Now you go direct to the judge, which speeds up the process and is going to help us in terms of, let me say, bringing people to book who've committed certain offenses, or getting to find a solution quicker in terms of a kidnapping or a child, or maybe, let me say, trying to get a hold of a criminal in such circumstances. So
it's this ex parte arrangement that is worrying many people, that you could be somewhere else on your own, and an officer of the law lawfully obtains authority to spy on you, and I'm trying to use these words as they're coming out, to monitor your movements, or to you herein. It's lawful, but the other party that's concerned is unaware, and then that kind of borders or hinges on abuse of someone's privacy.
Well, Frank, when you read the law, you find that actually the law prohibits interception. I think that has to be gotten clearly. It prohibits interception, but it provides for exceptions to when, you know, the law enforcers can intercept. And this is when there is unreasonable doubt that the lives of people are at risk, or there is a very huge crime that is being committed. And that's why my colleague here made it clear that even when that happens, somebody has to obtain some kind of an order from the judge to allow them to intercept. And within 48 hours, they have to submit, you know, a report explaining the reason behind the interception. And if the judge finds out that it was not necessary for them, or they did outside the law, then, you know, punitive action will be taken against such enforcers. So to me, that already, you know, sets up some protection of kind, and people shouldn't worry, because all in all, the law does not allow interception unless in extenuating circumstances.
Right. How is that related to communication?
So probably what I would put is that the other aspect that I've seen in this new law is the introduction of the Central Monitoring Center. So the Central Monitoring Center is the center that's going to be doing all interceptions. So this is the one place. So I think this brings about better governance in the way interceptions are done, rather than in the past where this wing... But
how is it supposed to make the... Should the public be expected to be comfortable Because just the word interception already sends certain chills in people. Interception being made to sound nice, but in actual terms, it's invasion of privacy. It's concerning to many people who are out there. So how do you make the public understand the context in which you wish for them to take this?
So I'm glad you bring this up. So the aspect of interception, I know right now it's gotten a lot of attention, but if you look at the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act of 2009, Section 67 and 68, this was actually there.
Okay.
The aspect of interception is not new to the Zambian law. It's always been there from 2009. And then it was moved into Section 30 of the Cybersecurity and Cybercrimes Act of 2021, Section 30. Now it's come into this law, which I think now it has garnered a lot of attention. But I feel there's nothing to be scared of. I think what the law is very specific on is lawful. The word lawful interception is very clear there. So anyone who commits unlawful interceptions, or like the example that you give, that's an unlawful interception. There are times, yes, you can go through the procedure, but what you're doing is still unlawful. And what I like is that there's a requirement. So if I give a judge a request to do an interception and he approves it, within 48 hours, I must go back to that judge and provide my findings. I must provide my findings of that, and I think which brings checks and balances. So I think this is something which has actually gotten an improvement now.
Right. Yeah. And this is what is not being explained to the public. Yeah. This 48 hours aspect and the fact that you have to go back and report, and it must be proven that this was necessary. All what people are reading is the part of it's intercepted and it is ending there. Would you like to further explain the safety valves that are there?
Oh yes, Frank, and I understand and actually feel what other people are feeling. But just an encouragement that when people are reading the law, we should avoid to read the law just to make the law, suit what we want to feel. But if you read, and the way I've been reading and understanding the law, of course there is a part where they've provided for interception in case of an emergency. Now that, imagine if somebody, like the example my colleague gave here, if somebody is kidnapped, say this hour, would you wait, and it's a weekend, would you wait for 2 or 20, for Monday or Tuesday for you to go through the processes of obtaining the order from the judge? So now the law now, in that case, has provided interception in case of such, emergencies where things can be done in reverse. So what that requires is somebody, they are doing it over, we're supposed to do it over a phone call to seek, an order and permission to carry on with interception. Then those who be done will be given permission to do that, and after that, still the law enforcers still has to do the same as they had obtained the order. They have to file in, a report within 48 hours to explain the reason why. And still, if the judge discovers that that was not done in good faith, penalties were applied to the law enforcers and even all those people who are involved in the. So what we're trying to say is that, should, make people comfortable to say the law does not actually encourage interception. But they can only, it only allows in circumstances where they feel people's lives are in danger or the crime is being committed.
Okay, so expecting, because again the other issue is that service providers must be ready, what you may call interception ready.
Okay.
Would you like to explain that?
Yes. So I'll give you an example, Frank. It's like we have a fire engine with no water. You're just waiting to say when a call comes, what do you do? So you don't wait for an incident, then you start preparing yourself to create systems that will help you to do the interception. So being interception ready means, yes, they have to be ready to have all the systems in place, but once they are called upon to carry out that lawful interception, they'll be ready to do so. So that's what it means to be interception ready.
Without being abusive or misusing the facility. In the same breath, are concerns that there will be violation of freedoms of expression, or the freedom of expression, and the people will start to censor themselves because of this. Are these not founded fears?
I mean, I think whenever something new comes up, of course, such fears are going to come up. But for me, I think when I look at the Zambian landscape, I think we have enough laws that are there to protect citizens. For example, Article 11 of the Constitution, freedom of expression, talks about freedom of expression, and it guarantees us that freedom of expression. Article 20 as well of the Constitution has guaranteed that. And the Constitution is above all other laws, right? Now, coming to some aspects that the public is bringing out, like your freedom of expression is going to be hampered by this law, I don't think so. I think the law is very clear on what's prohibited in terms of as you're expressing yourself. I think as citizens, we need to realize that even as we're expressing ourselves, we are not permitted to infringe on the rights of others, right? So in view of that, the law is very, very clear. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's under the Cyber Crimes Act, Section 10. Has got the proper provisions of what's allowed and what's not allowed. So in the sense of recordings, for example, I think that's Section 10, which talks about the recordings, and I see this one has brought up it has raised a lot of dust, I think. So for example, someone would say, so if I'm suspecting a criminal activity or some corruption going on, am I not going to be allowed to bring that or to record the conversation where I can prove the corruption? That is allowed. I think under subsection 3, C, if you look at C, you will see the aspect which actually talks about the aspect of when you are allowed. So in such circumstances, you are allowed to record that conversation. And then in terms of expressing ourselves, like I've talked about, we're already protected by the Constitution, and I think the aspects actually in here are very clear on what's not allowed as you express yourself, which I think is not a new thing. I think you agree with me. This has always been there in the way I've explained it.
Right.
Yeah, maybe just to add on the issue of freedom of expression, I know that's one of the major concerns of people. But, let's put it this way. We know that, the usage of cyberspace in Zambia has increased. Almost everyone depends on internet-related activities in the conducting of their day-to-day, activities. And that now has come with, with a lot of abuse. We can't, just keep, seeing people abusing each other. We've seen a lot of people doing wrong things such as hacking. We've seen a lot of people doing cyberbullying. We've seen a lot of hate speech being, perpetrated in Zambia. Let me give you an example of the war in Rwanda. What necessitated that was the issue of hate speech. And here in Zambia, we've seen the same happening. So to me, there is, a difference between the freedom and protection of, the citizens. So people are able to speak and express themselves in whatever way they want.
You are aware of the fear that has, just gone out there.
Yeah.
With some saying, I'm withdrawing from this group. With some saying, I'm closing down my Facebook account. With some saying, how do you counter that? I mean, because I'm pretty sure that what is desired is that people should have a buy-in and be comfortable. What you're sensing is apprehension and fear.
Yeah. If I know that I'm not doing anything bad, I'm communicating, I'm using especially social media in the way I'm supposed to use, why should I be scared? But if I know that every time I post, I'm posting with intent to injure another person. When we talk about hate speech, for example, hate speech, means I do something to you, Frank, which does not sit in well with you. I utter words something like you're a bad person, you're what, you're a criminal, but I can't even prove or substantiate that. But if the law visits me, will people blame you for taking me to task? And that's where now this Cybercrime Act comes into play.
Right.
It's to protect people who are being injured, but they can't protect themselves online. So it's there to ensure that people are protected against such attacks in the cyberspace.
Right.
And to me, it's there to bring sanity in the cyberspace.
Is this by any chance of international practice? Are you able to relate this anywhere where this is happening?
Yeah, I think earlier I did mention that looking at the international standards, actually from my research what I've seen is that our law actually aligns with the Malabo Convention, which is basically the African Union cybersecurity guidelines. And then it also talks, when you look at the Budapest Convention as well, our law aligns with that. And what these laws are going to do, I think for us who work in this space and what we've seen, for example, I can tell you, in Zambia alone, did you know that between 2023 to 2024, there was losses of about 38 million kwacha, over 38 million kwacha in losses from cybercrime. And then you're looking at 1,124 incidents that were recorded between that period, and this is going up. And then worldwide, we're looking at cybercrime increasing in 2025 to $10.5 trillion. So as you can see, this is something that we need to align with the international standards for us to work. And this legal framework, what it's doing for our nation is that previously when our regulations have not been very stringent, I think you've seen situations, just like even organizations, the way they operate sometimes, where you go to regions where regulations is a bit less, stringent. Even criminals do that. They move to countries where there's less safeguards, okay? Less prevention methods, lesser laws that could that have been put in place. So what we're seeing with our regulation is that it does align with international standards, and this actually puts us at a position where there's a requirement, I think he talked about, of protecting critical infrastructure. So we've been seeing these things that have been happening, Impia CDF Nashfuma. We see those texts all the time. But this regulation, what it's going to do, the service providers now are going to be held accountable in situations where they don't protect the consumers. Okay? So this is a good law from the perspective of the consumer.
How different was it from the 2021?
No, the 2021 did have these provisions, but the provisions on critical infrastructure were not so well specified as they've been in the current law. Okay, this time the aspects of critical infrastructure where the service providers are now required to put in safeguards and uphold a certain cybersecurity hygiene and certain cybersecurity posture is now a requirement for that. So you cannot have excuses anymore with the new law.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to invite callers to come in and ask questions and give your contribution to the subject matter at hand. We're discussing the Cybersecurity Act number 3 of 2025, as well as the Cyber Crimes Act number 4 of 2025. And having said that, as a matter of emphasis, are they being mixed up?
I think from what we're seeing in the public is that they're being mixed up. So people are talking about the cybersecurity laws. Everybody keeps saying cybersecurity laws, or someone says the cybersecurity, this law, this cybersecurity law. But there are two different laws. I think the Cybersecurity Act is more on the governance of cybersecurity. And then if you look at the Cyber Crimes Act, it's more on the enforcement and clearly defining the penalties that have been put in place in terms of defining the criminality, defining the illegal activities and things of that matter. So I think this is a good move that has been made in terms of separating them. So there's no gray area now the way it was previously when it was just combined.
Okay,
yes.
Right. We've got a caller joining in. Nicholas, you're calling in from Mansa. Good evening to you. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, doctor. Good evening, the panel there.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, thank you.
Yes. I heard about this conversation, but the thing which is coming to this meeting, maybe you can inform the citizens about the cyber coming down from top there and come down to the rural areas to understand what is happening in the country. That can be so much important to us. Because if you are explaining through to quote the program which is coming here in Zambia, which means some of us, we don't know the root where it comes from, but we need to understand truly without any issue which is coming to pin people. And those who are going to be in those teachings, they must help all traditional and urban areas and rural areas to understand what is going on in our country.
Thank you.
But when you are saying this, you must understand that there is people who are so much understanding what you are saying, and there is people who are not so much understand what you are going to tell people in Zambia.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So understanding, it means that for someone who doesn't understand, they run the risk of falling into the wrong side of the law. And it brings in the aspect of how wide was consultation, publicity, discussion around this? Because the caller seems to suggest you haven't explained much to the person in the rural area or someone who may not be able to grasp the technical issues that are found in the Act.
Yeah, well, to some extent I would agree with him. I think whenever a law is coming into place, we need to ensure that a lot of awareness is done to ensure that every average citizen understand and they know how to behave whenever they are in the cyberspace. But when it comes to consultation, I remember, I think, I would say wide consultation was done. It's only that, Frank, we are about 19 million in Zambia, and I don't think every single person can be consulted. So what we do, even in research, I'm an academician in my other life, and I'll tell you that when we're doing a research, I'll do a research on behalf of the country, but I'll pick some stratas as my sample.
But surely there's a minimum.
Yes.
They have to be, you have to feel something is happening.
Yes.
You can't reach everybody, but there's a sense which you get that there's this that has come, and there are these matters that must be understood. So if the larger number of people, and I don't know what the actual numbers are suggesting that this has hit them suddenly, isn't there a problem there?
Well, the problem can be there, but I believe we still have a lot of time to go around the country and ensure that awareness is done.
It's law now. People are going to do wrong now.
Yeah, but that, Frank, shouldn't stop the law from being put in place. Actually, to think of it, even if those people who are claiming they were not consulted, they're actually being protected to a larger extent. Because we've heard that unlawful, for example, the law prohibits people from, disseminating or misinforming people. Already that protects somebody, even if you are consulted or not. But what we are saying is, people were represented by, in one way or another. Let's go to Parliament. I think this law passed through Parliament. It went through the first reading, second reading, third reading. Who represents the constituencies? It's the members of Parliament. Members of Parliament are there to represent people from different constituencies.
Right. Let's bring in Fanwa. Fanwa is calling in from Lusaka. Fanwa, welcome to Sunday Interview. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, panelists.
Good evening.
I understand what the subject we are discussing about there, but I think the fear of many of our people is the selective way of dealing with such issues. Other issues who might commit similar offenses could be excluded or could seem not even to have committed an offense. But others will actually be, even for a simple word, they will actually be arrested. This is a fear that is being expressed even me speaking to you. I have this fear. Unless you clearly explain to us, but we've seen in the past, or we are seeing currently what is happening. This is a fear that I can easily tell you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fano, for that question. I think he's got a valid point. For me, what I would probably talk about, Frank, is I think the aspect of enhanced enforcement mechanisms is what we need to start talking about. So what he's talking about is probably selective enforcement, where you pick for certain people, you're really bringing them to book based on the law. And then for others, you are, it becomes a gray area. But I think the first thing I'm going to assure the citizens from my research that I've done is that there are safeguards for citizens in the law. The provisions that have been put in the law. The second thing is that this is where we also need civil society to come in and start analyzing and probably assessing how this law, maybe for the next 6 months, is being, implemented, right? That's the aspect of bringing in the CSOs, the civil society organizations, to really probe on how this law is going to be implemented. That's the first thing. The second thing is the aspect, I think, for the previous caller, awareness. I think once we enhance our public awareness, we're also enhancing public safety in the process, and we're also protecting citizens not only from what people are currently scared of, but the main thing that the law is meant to protect, their safety from cyber attacks, from fraud, from child solicitation and things of that nature that are currently happening. So I think the aspect is, just to answer his question, is the aspect of enhanced enforcement mechanisms, so that we are able to probe how this law is being implemented for a certain period, and we sit and bring in the civil society to just assess how far it has gone, how is it implemented, what things are not being done right. And I think once we do that, and there's aspects of balancing safety and security here, so safety and freedom at the point here.
Right. As you explain, it's clear that social media and those that are have put themselves in front to explain these things, many say, well, have instilled fear and apprehension. Whereas with adequate publicity, the advantages as to why this is necessary perhaps could have been competing with what is negative now. How do you ramp up the need, or how do you ramp up the positives of this law? Because at the moment, it just seems it's tilted towards what is negative. But perhaps before you answer that, we've got a caller. Pastor Shabani from Luansha, please go ahead.
Thank you, Innocent. Let me begin by commending you, Innocent, and your interview. The way you are flowing, your thoughts are very, you are very much thoughtful, and you know what you are doing as you interview the panel. Two, it's like they are not responding to your two questions, especially on the freedom and the is it interception, things like that. They are not coming out clear to give the public expectation. Now, what do I mean here? You see, the last caller is talking about people don't exactly know when this was done and how it has come to become a law. There was less sensitization. If they did not go as far to the grassroots. Let me give you an example here in Luansha, particularly Loni constituency. People doesn't know all these things. We didn't see you coming here to do that kind of sensitization. But I heard from the minister giving this same report. He was saying, now people, we are going in every district to sensitize, to tell the people when it is already the law. This could have been done before this sensitization. The government could have carried it out through in all the provinces, especially the grassroots route.
I think we get your point.
Yes.
We get your point. Thank you very much for coming.
I have a point I just want to make.
Okay. Please, in a second.
Yes. I'm trying to say that as now this has become a law, the government and the government should understand, we Christians, let's look at the other perspective. When Jesus was undergoing his trials by Pilate and Herod, you know, people were free to express their views, and their will prevailed. Yet, they were not even, Jesus was innocent.
Sir, Sir,
Yes.
we need to accommodate as many. We get the gist of your concern. So if you can allow the panelists to just quickly answer, so that we can allow other callers to come in through. So I think it's clarity on interception, which you had it earlier, which he's concerned about, and interceptions. I don't know whether you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Shaban. I think on interception, I tried also to touch it, that my colleague did, but from what I've read in the law, is the law, and I put it clear, Frank. I said the law does not allow interception, but it does put provisions for lawful interception. And that is when a person, proves, or a group, or if indeed the security wing proves that there is no reasonable doubt.
Is that completely new, though? Is this a completely new?
No, it's not new.
It's not new.
And just to make it maybe on the lighter note, Frank, I would say that there are a lot of countries that intercept without even the law. And I think even in this country, even time immemorial, I would ask a question: do we expect that the country was not able to intercept in any communication of kind? They did, but now what we are seeing is now the law is providing the clear guidelines on when an interception can be done.
Right.
And this is what they're saying: the law prohibits unlawful interception, but only when there is an order obtained from the judge.
Right. You wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, so I think probably to answer the pastor's question, I think the aspect that people are mainly referring to is the aspect of the service providers being interception ready. I think this is giving us the chills, like the ooh, But I think the law has provided for that. So the service providers should be interception ready, so that if there's anything that needs to, or that requires lawful interception, and I'll add that keyword there, lawful interception, it would be necessary that would be effected by that service provider. Mm-hmm. So there will be requirements in situations where maybe it involves national security, it involves a critical matter. I think I did talk about a situation of kidnapping and things of that nature. Interceptions have actually saved lives. So as he mentioned, I can mention countries maybe within our African context that have similar regulations, mm-hmm. just around us. South Africa has similar regulations. Kenya has similar regulations. Ghana, Nigeria, all of these countries have these similar regulations. So this aspect of interception is not something that is new, as he mentioned. Like I mentioned, it's been there from the ECT Act from 2009.
Right. Yeah. One other concern that people have is what they call regarding as disproportionate sentences. Possession of unauthorized data, 15 years. And there's concerns out there that may, especially when there's no actual harm which has occurred. Why should the public be comfortable with this?
Let me admit that, I may not put it in the way that people want to hear, but the law is there to deter people from committing. And that's why some of these sentences are put across, so that before I even commit that, if I understand, I shouldn't even try to do it. But I mean, Frank, if they say, if you commit this, it's 2 days in prison, I mean, who would be scared to do? I mean, against committing any crime. People will be doing it with impunity. So I feel when they are touching some of these penalties, they mean to deter people from committing such crimes.
Right.
I think I would simply put it in that way.
Right. Let's talk about child protection, because that is also crucial. There's a lot of erosion. The future is being damaged by these, people that hide behind the keyboard. To what extent does this truly protect the child, saying that they have access to gadgets as and when? I know some countries which are restricting at what age a child can even have a phone. I think it's open here. So to what extent does, if at all, any aspect of the law protects a child?
Okay, so there are, I think from the aspect of child protection, I think there are good clauses in this law that now address that. But firstly, let me make this clear to citizens. This law is meant to protect all citizens, not just children. But there are specific provisions that have gone on to define aspects of protecting children. For example, prohibition of online trafficking, prohibition of online of child solicitation, trafficking and things of that nature. I think we've noticed that our children are at high risk online because mostly they've been trafficked without you knowing as a parent. They've been asked to share explicit images without the knowledge of the parent. But what these laws do is that they've clearly classified what is prohibited from being shared, in the process protecting the children. And then what we're going to see also is, because of this law, the enhancements that have been made is that what you're going to see is social media sites such as Facebook, because they're operating with Zambian clients, they're going to have to align with the Zambian law. So I think these are good regulations, because in the sense that Facebook still wants to operate in Zambia. So if you're going to operate in Zambia, you have to abide by our laws. In the process, you're protecting our children. And from the aspect of a parent, I think this is a good development that has come on. You know that there are actually provisions. Even those who have been specialized in these types of crimes are also now knowing that, look, there's actual definitions of what should not be done.
Right. Yeah. I want to bring in Chileshe, who's calling in from Osaka. Chileshe, welcome to Sunday Interview. Please go ahead.
Good evening.
Evening to you.
I'll try to speak in Nyanja so that the whole Zambia understands. When you hear of America, America, like intercept Bin Laden.
I'm sorry. We can't hear you. We can't. You'd have to speak up, and we'll really appreciate if you.
I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay. Am I able to? Are you able?
Yes, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Zambians
No. If you could speak in English, it would be better. If you want everybody to hear, I think let's in the official, in English, please, if you can.
Okay. What I want to say is that in the country where there are no laws, it is like a baboon forest, where everyone can do whatever they want to do. What is surprising Zambians is this. If you hear of America, that they intercepted Bin Laden and they knew where he was, did they ask anyone to give them the contact? They used the intrusion, the same word that you are using now. In Zambia today, Zambians, if you lose your phone, the first thing that you are going to find is that the people that have stolen your phone, they will start sending messages to people, hey, send me money, this one, send me money, unless you have not experienced the loss of a phone. 3, if today I call Innocent there, the doctor there, I will be recording whatever we are talking. Meanwhile, he doesn't know that I'm recording. Tomorrow I use the same. But this law, when I read it, I saw somewhere where it says you cannot record without the other one knowing what you are doing. This is a good law, Zambian. I can tell you that even politicians that are changing, saying, oh, come on, change this and this, what are they going to change it to allow people to start, abusing each other on the phone when they don't even know who is stolen it? They just keep quiet, you lose your money and everything. Let's be careful. This is Zambia. Please, this is our country.
Thank you very much, sir.
This is a good problem. Let's let people read the law first of all.
Thank you. We get the gist. Would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think I like the issue that is brought in. It's given a very good example of people who lose phones. Sometimes they just hack into your WhatsApp and they'll start soliciting for money from different people. But now that's a very good example to when interception would work. I mean, if I lost a gadget, of course there's the issue of geolocation, there's the issue of maybe law enforcers trying to intercept and see where that particular person is sending messages is that particular time the people is communicating to. Mm-hmm. So it's at that point, that's a very good example of now where lawful interception is allowed in the law.
Right. There are concerns, though, from legitimate activities that are executed by researchers, ethical hackers, those who are licensed, journalists, on the whistleblowers. They could be punished. for activities that are done in public interest?
Okay, so things that are done in public interest, the first thing I'll mention is that if you're a whistleblower, you're protected by the Whistleblowers Act. That's very clear. You're going to be...
Are you sure about that?
I am 100% sure. If I'm a whistleblower, I'm protected by that. Then I did mention that under the Cyber Crimes Act, Section 10, I think that's 3C, under subsection 3C, you will see that it actually allows, I think it talked about the aspect of recording. If you're going to record someone, for example, trying to prove a crime or trying to prove to law enforcement about a certain situation, that is allowed.
But how forthcoming do you think they will be with this skepticism around? How forthcoming will someone leak a case of corruption, for example, when it should be a good thing in the end? In this country, I think I remember a 1976 case where the Supreme Court ruled that illegally obtained evidence is admissible at law. But with this kind of fear that is, do you see people, for purposes of something positive like fighting corruption, do you see them coming forward or do you see them holding back? Doesn't this make people hold back?
I think in the aspects, in any society, when you introduce something new, you have to work on building public trust. And in the process of building public trust, you have law enforcement. That's why I talked about enhanced enforcement mechanisms. What mechanisms are we using to enforce this law, and what processes are we going to use to ensure that we gain that public trust to say, look, you can come forward and you will be protected. So I think the onus will be on law enforcement agencies to actually build the public trust with regards to this law. I think it's going to need a lot of unlearning of the previous ways of doing things. It's also going to need new skills. It's going to need new roles to be created. I think the aspects that I've been discussing with people is that another aspect that I'm hoping can come out of this is government actually coming up with support for victims. In other countries, they do have support for victims of cybercrime and things of that nature. So I'm hoping that out of this, we can actually see a wing that will be developed to actually provide support for victims of cybercrime. I think we've seen this where your money is wiped out. What happens? You know, that was the only money you had. You've been traumatized. What happens in a child was solicited online? What happens in those circumstances?
Right.
So we need to also come up with those those support channels.
We have one last caller calling inside the interview, Matthew from Kabwe. Please go ahead very quickly.
Hello.
Hello, Matthew. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening.
Yes, please go ahead. You've got under a minute.
Yeah. This law is totally supported. But most of the laws, when you look at them, interpretation, even in court, even outside, it's always or usually precarious, where the regulations and the guidelines to give guidance to arresting officers or to those that are going to monitor, and also to protect the citizens. When are we going to have the guidelines so that this law is fully interpreted? When are we going to have the regulations themselves? Because most of the time in Zambia here, having participated in technical committees where we draft the laws as laypersons, most of the laws are not backed by regulations. That's where the problems come in.
Thank you, sir. Would you like to address that very quickly, because we have to go?
Yeah, well, I think from what I can get from Matthew, is just calling upon some clear guidelines to be given or explanations to this law. So I think even we have a very huge mandate to ensure that we help the government to create awareness. And I think this may include even doing it in local languages across the country to ensure that even an average Zambian understand and appreciate what these laws they are all about, and understand that they are not actually there to punish people, but to protect.
Right.
I mean, the larger, population
right.
of Zambia.
So, as we close, how do you address the notion out there that this law is targeted at certain civil society entities, the media, that reporters would be harassed in the name of cybersecurity because it is part of their job. As they collect some of the sometimes information, they will use all sorts of methodologies to get information. There's social media commentary that goes on. There's satire that, you know, also happens in this space. So how do you explain this to the public? How do you differentiate? How will they know? Why should they be comfortable that they'll be receiving? Say this is lawful, this is not lawful, this was banter, and this wasn't too serious. Why should the public be, how do you place the public? How do you explain that?
Thank you so much for that question. I think the thing that I would mention is I think the aspect of the law that we need to look at, it clearly defines what is prohibited and what is allowed. Let's start from there. And I think, like I mentioned, the media is protected under freedom of expression, freedom of the press. You know, all of these are under the Constitution. And there's no part of this law that is clearly targeting one group or one aspect of society. I think the main aspect of this law is that it's all-encompassing and it covers every member of the public, not just a particular group or targeting a particular group if you look at the clauses that are there. And I think the main issue that I would advise is that we should not look at it from a single lens or from a single point of view. We should look at it and say, what is it meant to achieve? What is the overall goal of this particular law?
Right.
And these laws are, we've seen that, you know technology is growing and it's evolving. If you should not be shocked if next year we come back and we say we've changed a few things in the law and added more clauses, because technology is very quick in the way it's evolving. So we also need to move with the way technology is evolving. So if we're going to just limit and say, oh, let's create a law to just attack this group, then we're not achieving anything. But to the people out there who are thinking of how do I differentiate, I think the clear thing which the law I've seen is it's actually classified what's prohibited in terms of
and what
when
is
you're
not.
expressing yourself. Yes.
Like, I could get a last word from you, because here it's about public confidence.
So maybe just, I'm coming from a professional body that regulates the professional conduct of ICT people, in Zambia. So the only assurance we're giving the people that our role is to ensure that high level of professionalism is applied even in the application of this law. Because we know most of the people be dealing with these things are ICT people who be involved. So we have to ensure that none of our members, are being unprofessional in the handling of things like we talked of critical information, critical infrastructure. We'll ensure that we provide checks and balances to ensure that even the law enforcers uphold the high level of professionalism as they
have to go.
Law.
I want to thank you both. I know that time is not the best, we don't have a lot of it, and I can only wish you the very best as we break it down for the public.
Thank you so much.
And I'm afraid that's it on the interview. Dr. Clemens Nyangwe, President of the ICT Association of Zambia, as well as Tawangwa Tsamanga, Vice President of Isaka Lusaka chapter. And until next time on Sunday interview, stay safe and goodbye.